Hi Hamsa.
Hi Gita.
On this Earth Day, it's my pleasure to invite Hamsa Iyer, an expert in solid waste management who has been a practitioner in this field for over 12 years. And she's been working on almost the entire spectrum of the environment, its sustainability, people practices, and multiples of things. And today we are looking at having a rather free flowing conversation on what sustainability means to her as a person and as a professional in this field.
Thanks, Gita. So I think sustainability is something that's so innate in the way we live, right? And it's just that we've gone farther and farther away from those practices. So 20 years ago, our lanes weren't so, you wouldn't see plastic lying around in our lanes. And today you see that as a recurrent problem everywhere. So in the sense, we've somewhere grown apart from our principal values of using well, using to the fullest, not throwing things away. And we've reached a point where I think it's very important for all of us to broach this piece, not just as individuals, but also the way we do work, the way we do business, the way we're living in communities. I think it's now like an emergent conversation. I think 10 years ago people were like, who cares? But it's very endearing to see now more and more people come up and say that they care, and you see that in the way that they're looking for products, they're looking for services, they're looking for business value chains, whether it's supply chain, whether it's logistics. Everywhere we want to do little more sustainably than what we were doing before. So I think the word sustainability is really nicely plugged in to different facets of life. And we of course we say that we must minimize the waste that we're doing, and that's one of the principles that we follow both at work and of course also in personal life. um, but it's I feel is the most powerful way to drive sustainability across, and that's one of the things that I really like about your products as well, because it's one thing that can address multiple things in a personal wellness regime, right? So bunch of your oils, that's all you need to get to take care of yourself. And I think most businesses are also trying to get there. So I think you're way ahead of times in trying to have figured out how to put everything together for a customer. But what have your thoughts on sustainability been in your Parama journey or otherwise?
So I think my sustainability journey started well before Parama. And I think there were so many different aspects which became a part of my personal life. And then I wanted to make sure that it was also part of the professional life.
Mm.
Uh, so one, for instance, was, whenever we used to see reduce, reuse, recycle, you know that the first thing that you need to work on is actually reduce.
Reduction, yeah.
You can think that yes, I'll recycle this waste. But long before coming to recycling, because recycling also requires so much resource, can we reduce? When I say reduce consumption for a growing economy like India, it's very it's very unfair to say that oh, we as the haves should say reduce consumption, whereas the whole country
Yeah,
wants to now increase its consumption. They have come out of the a fairly
absolutely.
starved era, and they want to increase, and it's very unfair to tell them no, you hold back your consumption,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So how do we build that into a practice where you tell people, okay, consume, but consume mindfully. For
Yeah.
example, and that's a personal dichotomy. So even in our home, we say, okay, reduce, reduce. So where do we reduce? At the same time, if we say we reduce consumption, what happens to the millions of artisans who are working in the country?
Mm.
What happens to their livelihood? So when you consume mindfully, you can look at maybe reducing some consumption while increasing some other consumption so that there is an egalitarian
Mm.
spread of
But
wealth.
I also feel like this comes from a sense of interdependence versus independent. our economy has no longer enjoys and practices that interdependence, because we're so used to externalizing everything, right? Like you outsource it to an agency, you outsource tasks to some other organization, and this is typically how we run business in our country. But if you look at what you're saying, right, artisans, there was a set of interdependence where you needed each other through seasons, through practices, through social fabric. And I think businesses are going to have to now figure out how to weave that social practices back in. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to
You're
find
so
food,
right. You're
right?
so right. So, but
Yeah.
coming back to the point of, let's say, reduce. Okay. So, for example, in the professional journey, you've tried to make the products potent so that all you need is a few drops
Hmm.
of a product rather than have a large
Volume.
voluminous uh, thing. For example, in a daily moisturizer,
Hmm.
if you see the construct of a moisturizer in a bottle, the way it is made is maybe 8 to 10% of an oil or oily substance, about 60 to 80% of water, and then there's chemicals. Okay, so just from a reduction point of view, there is a filler called aqua
Hmm.
in all moisturizers.
Yes.
What are you doing? You're basically, they'll say, oh, we are putting the aqua because people find it very
Easy for it to
easy for it to apply. Now, what that does is it is increasing your carbon footprint or your footprint on the planet, because now what would have been just one bottle of oil now is 6 bottles of moisturizer.
Hmm.
So, what happens to that plastic waste?
Hmm.
Now, the other aspect, which is sustainability, is this chemicals which is gone into emulsify to preserve, because the moment you're mixing oil and water, when you're putting those chemicals are going onto your skin. There are chemicals which are used to produce those chemicals. So in the entire
There's like a
value
factory
chain,
supply chain of
correct.
chemicals.
So there's chemicals used for making chemicals, at which point in time there's water runoff at the chemical factory, and there's air pollution probably.
Hmm.
Then there is chemicals which are going when you're in your own factory after you blended the stuff, you then have wash off. Where is that water going? Irrespective of all the sewage treatment plants, there is still a lot of untreated sewage going into our rivers and in our aquifers.
Hmm.
Where is that finding its
Coming
way?
back
It's
to us.
coming back to us,
Yeah.
right? And the third one is when you're applying it, those chemicals are leaching into your own body. So it's not sustainable for you over your lifetime, because there can be long-term impacts of uh, even ingredients like parabens, which is required as a
Yeah.
preservative, which everybody will justify
Hmm.
that we need it as a preservative, linked to hormonal disruptions
Yeah.
in young girls, teenage girls,
Yeah.
which leads to PCOD, PCOS, which leads to fertility issues, which leads to acne and a whole lot of other dermatological issues.
Yeah.
We are not, which leads to obesity. I mean, there are just so many repercussions, but because the time duration of cause and effect is so long,
Yeah.
it has taken the world to recognize this aspect maybe after 70 years. Parabens was discovered in 1930s, and we're talking about it now. So
Yeah.
when I'm talking about reduce, it's like reducing your thing or minimizing your thing to the extent possible.
So this is something that I find that this is a parallel conversation that I have when it comes to single-use plastics, right? So 20, 25 years ago, the way weddings were done was, of course, it was very different social affair. But if you just look at the way pangat or even food was had, if you look at smaller towns and villages, they would typically everybody would bring their own plates. They valued the fact that you had to come with a social binding to make this event happen together in that sense. And you don't see that these days. The number of disposables in a wedding ranges anywhere between 5 to 10 pieces per person. Now you multiply that into at least 400. I'm talking about a medium sized wedding. That's 400 into 10. I mean, that's 4,000 pieces of single use plastic. And we're not seeing that. I mean, it's so out of sight, out of mind. So I also say the same thing, that the plastic paper cup that people talk about. First of all, it's not paper cup, it's a plastic cup. Let's call it what it is. That paper cup has so many chemicals that has gone into it. We are enjoying and devouring hot soups, different very beautifully made, very well made dishes in those disposables, that we're losing sight of how we are celebrating. And it's a very dirty affair to manage afterwards. It's one thing to, and I've
That's
seen this
true.
multiple times at different occasions where people have turned around and said, oh, somebody should have been there for recycling. But it takes some bodies to build that army to be able to recycle. We are
See,
so reluctant, right? We're so reluctant
absolutely.
to at least even wash or at least finish what's there in that paper cup or plastic cup, or those single use plates. How can you expect somebody else to wash 4,000 of those pieces and then take the responsibility for recycling? It's like we've externalized it. You feel that somebody else's livelihood makes them entitled to this soiled waste, and this is where I don't get that sustainability starts at home with your two hands. So we deal with a lot of customers who come around and say that, oh, you want us to segregate. And it takes a lot of, effort in terms of changing that behavior, because it's gotten to a point where a house party or like a get together involves ordering on Swiggy for each person individually. It's gotten to that point. That's how
Yeah,
we're
because
celebrating these days.
nobody wants to have what somebody
Else wants to have,
chose,
right? Because it's
Yeah,
that
it's become
convenient.
so
It's become that
not just
convenient.
convenient, but it's also become such a personal choice that I don't want. I want just what I
Want to
want to
have.
have, and I don't want to adjust at all.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you bring up this point of the single-use plastic. So I was in this dilemma when we started making the Parama Naturals oil, and what we realized was that whatever we might shout from the rooftops about the goodness of the oils, we felt that it is something only that a person can experience
Yeah.
first, and then they will decide whether this is good for them or not. So at that time there was a toss up. The sachets, which was started maybe 40 years ago, to make sure that the bottom of the pyramid could get shampoos, for instance, at an egalitarian price, are ubiquitous, right? And the cost of making a trial pouch in that sachet is ridiculously low, or let's put it this way, affordably low, right? At the other end is a trial bottle, which will obviously be expensive, both in terms of the raw material cost as well as in the quantum of ingredients that you put in that. But this single use pouch, A, it'll just probably not even be consciously disposed of for
Yeah.
it to go into
Yeah.
a recycling mode. More importantly, most of these are multi-layered plastic, in which case the recyclability itself is a question mark. So for businesses like mine, and this is a real challenge, because then you're trading off cost effectiveness versus sustainability. Now, the answers, so we're constantly looking for materials or methods of how can we bridge this gap.
No, but I think what you're doing in this space is excellent. Okay, so most people that I have spoken to are always talking about this quest for some new material that doesn't exist. But if you bridge that gap, right, with existing materials that are 100% recycled effectively, is a great way to find a mid path on actually delivering sustainability, because there are three products three pieces that you use. One is PET. uh, the Some of your oils come in PET, some of your oils come in glass, again infinitely recyclable, and of course cardboard, which is again infinitely recyclable. So I think identifying these materials in the value chain that have recyclability, at least 9 out of 10 locations that they will land up in, is a great way to say, and say bottom line, that I'm realistic as a business owner.
Yeah, but it is really tough,
Tough, yeah.
because unfortunately, I think most people have compartments in their heads.
Mm.
They want to say they are happy using sustainable products, but when it comes at a price, not everybody is that open to using products which are more sustainable.
Mm.
Second one is not just about the price, but little bit of inconvenience. For example, we say apply the oil. If you apply the oil on a wet body, it's the equivalent of having a moisturizer,
Mm.
a lightweight moisturizer without any chemicals
Mm.
and without the extra bottling. But people say, nahi, 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 हमको तो lotion ही चाहिए, right? So it requires a lot of education, requires a lot of education by multiple people.
Mm.
And in this media intensive world, and everybody wanting everything as a quick
Quick,
fix,
quick, yeah,
कि
absolutely.
क्यों बनाएं, अभी तैयार है तो क्यों बनाएं अपने आप,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So which is what we've tried to bridge with that all you have to do is you know just straight after your bath on a slightly moist skin apply this and you have your moisturizer, voila.
Yeah.
And but it takes some amount of
So I want to give you an example of your Zingiber oil that we've sort of over the years understood. So I have a 5-year-old, and we've been using your oils ever since she was like probably 30 days old. You came home with that small, nice. I had a bundle delivered to me because I had a bundle, and she got this very nasty cold. Okay, whatever we did, it just didn't go. And finally, I said, you know what? I'm just going to pull that gingeber oil out. And I just slathered it all over her. And I just went in for a hot bath with her. Lo and behold, the whole mucus that was stuck and that was causing thing just came out in that bath.
oh wow.
That's it. She slept peacefully after 5 days, and obviously, I also slept peacefully after 5 days, right? So, these are, I feel like when you have that rite of passage as an entity, that is when you realize the value of some of these products. And
it's
no,
true,
it's true.
ginger
Yeah.
or dried ginger, which is sown, is actually a powerhouse of nature.
Nature, yeah.
Like how turmeric is. When we were young, cut ho to haldi, burn ho to haldi.
Haldi, correct.
If you have acne, haldi. त्वचा को
In fact,
निखारने के लिए हल्दी.
even oil baths would have kasturi manjal put into the lepam that typically mothers and grandmothers would do. So
absolutely. लेकिन but क्या हो गया है, because turmeric leaves a yellow color, this haldi uptan and applying haldi has gone out of vogue. So how do you bring that back?
Yeah. Oh, that brings me to a question. That brings me to a question. Why do you think of stain-free haldi? Like, how did you crack that?
Oh, that's an interesting thing. Actually, it's I think it was more serendipity. Let's put it this way. When our holistic journey started with an immersion into what we call as integrative healing. We were looking at remedies to pacify the asthmatic attacks of my daughter when she was really little. We started delving into Ayurveda, homeopathy, naturopathy, yoga, changing lifestyles, aromatherapy. You can name them all. Okay, and one, when we discover the delights of these ancient traditions, and sometimes a lot of naysayers would say that these things have their own pitfalls, whether it is the lack of standardization, whether it could be the heavy metals or pesticides that come into it. It so happened that my husband, who's a financial investor, was approached with an investment idea into a factory which was making extracts of herbs and spices. And the beauty of this extraction process was that it was chemical free, it was solvent free, it was such an exact process where you could keep out any heavy metals, any lead poisoning, any pesticides that would come into the thing. And at the end of it, it was like a cold extraction process, so it retained all the elements of the pure ingredient, just keeping out the cellulose, which was which was probably making it more bulky and less effective. And while doing these experiments as to what all the plant can be used for, my husband was, managed to do an extract of turmeric, which we discovered provided the same benefits of applying a haldi uptan on the skin and without the yellow stains. And that was a very remarkable, I would say, discovery, or I wouldn't even call it invention. It was just an experimentation which yielded this. And the more we read about this extract, the more aspects we started coming to know about it, almost like an onion peeling. So this same extract, for instance, so at that point in time, my daughter had very high allergies to skincare ingredients, a baby oil, moisturizers from the market, even of so-called natural, Ayurvedic or premium brands. And just for her, I would do this oils mixed with this haldi extract, and she wouldn't break out into any allergic reactions. We discovered that my mother-in-law's psoriatic patches became softer and non-itchy. And
you were like this alchemist at home.
Absolutely, these were all my own experiments. And sometime later, it so happened that one of my friends, because by that time I started getting to be known as the resident Ayurveda or natural therapies expert. So she broke out into some rashes with a moisturizer and sunscreen that she was using, and she had really patchy skin. So she came to me, she said, please give me some solution. So I made this concoction with this turmeric extract and mixed in oil and gave it to her. And I just asked her, I said, did your skin react to this? So she said, no, it is fine. And I forgot all about it. About 3 months later, we met at a party and she was complimented on her glowing skin. And she said, what are you using? She said, I'm just using the oils that Geeta made. Immediately, obviously, you had a whole, when you have a glowing skin and a pretty lady, 5 other friends popped up. What is this? Why have you given only her? Why is she your favorite and why have you not made for us? I said, well, she had a problem and so she approached me and I gave it to her. Why don't you give some to us also? I said, okay. And I promptly mixed some and gave it to them. And when they were coming to the end of it, they said, why don't you give us some more? I said, wow, I mean, why don't you
just learn to make this yourself.
Yeah, correct. I said, no, we can't get into this. And I said, they said, why don't you start a business of this? I said, business of this? I said, so many brands out there. But your question about stain-free turmeric, so these were the miraculous findings that you got the benefits of the haldi uptan. When I say benefits of haldi uptan were what all? They were clarifying the skin of this friend. She no longer had the blotches. Her skin was getting cleared up. She, in fact, some of her fine lines and wrinkles started disappearing. My daughter didn't have any allergic reaction. My mother-in-law had her psoriatic patches cleared, and all without the yellow stains. Probably before that, and interestingly, after some time, even for any cuts or bruises that my kids had, this became the antiseptic, the first aid go-to for anybody. And most recently, even my father could hurt his bald patch on his head with a piece of some furniture. For a couple of days, he'd been scratching it, and the scabs were forming, and every time it would bleed. And I just put a drop of that. It went immediately. So, so the discovery was serendipitous, but the results were remarkable.
So far we've spoken about largely women who have benefited from that. Have there been men also who have benefited and who are claiming that their skin is glowing or they're doing much better than before?
So interestingly, yes, a lot of my friends and customers have come back to me with this feedback that the oils that we buy from you are now getting consumed much more by our husbands. So when I say even the benefit of a haldi uptan, so typically a haldi uptan would involve mixing the haldi and besan and dahi, and then applying and then sitting for some time for the effects to take place. Whereas this, the stain-free turmeric oil, all you have to do is take one spray of that in your hand, rub it and apply it on your face after you've had a face wash, and you can just leave it on.
Yeah.
You
You don't have to
don't,
wipe
and
anything.
this takes not even 30 seconds to get the benefit of something which otherwise would take 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And without the mess or the stains or the
Yeah,
chip
absolutely.
or dirty clothes or
So
whatever.
your multi-purpose butter, which is I think lip, hair, and skin, right? You have one of those, which is my go-to thing because I have frizzy hair, I have wavy curly hair, and very few commercial products is something that I like on them anyway. I'm all for Shikakai and Rita to wash, which obviously leaves a little bit of frizzy, dry feeling at the end of it. But that butter, I mean, oh my God, thank you so much for making that. All I need to do is just take this much of it, spread it across, and just put it on my head, just like it's time, done. So it's like you don't need so much of, you don't need to consume this much. You need like this much, pay a good, affordable price for that, and it stays with you for like a significantly longer time. And so your oils are like an all-time favorite. One of my attes who on my husband's side, she has rheumatoid arthritis and she has severe medication. So it was just drying her skin out. And I promptly gave her your all-day light, and her skin has just, all the dryness has gone, all the
Oh,
itchy feeling
wow.
has gone, all the discomfort with, oh, my skin is feeling stretched has gone. So I think that one product that can retrofit in people's lives and have value for that, it's totally worth it. Because you can spend on bottles and bottles and bottles, but you're actually asking customers to spend on 2 bottles a year. That's what it comes down to, right?
Absolutely.
It's 2 bottles a year. It
Max
takes,
three.
yeah, max
If
3.
you're in a very dry climate like in Pune or Bangalore, then sometimes 3 bottles.
So have you done a cost per pump? Have you ever done that?
So yes, we have. Actually, the cost per pump is the cost of a tea bag sachet that you use in a day. So some people used to crib about the cost of the oil, and when we did this whole calculation that it's really not more than the cost of a tea bag
Tea
per
bag,
day.
yeah.
But
So
thank
yeah,
you for raising
yeah,
this point.
yeah, right. So we did that too at work because waste is something that most people don't want to spend on because it's kachra, right? Like why will somebody spend on kachra? Municipality ka gaadi aa raha hai leke jaane ke liye. So we did a cost analysis of this. It's cheaper for a family to subscribe to our waste management services in a housing society, of course, at less than the cost of 1 liter of petrol, less than one mango, less than a packet of sanitary pads, less than for sure Swiggy delivery fee that you have to pay, and that's what it is. I mean, it's already become that affordable. Just that
Absolutely.
you
And
just have to
in fact, the entire bottle, which will last you for 4 months
at least, yeah,
at least for
yeah,
4 months, is the cost of 2 pizzas.
yeah, absolutely.
That's it. So,
It can't get cheaper than this, people.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But something, we still face challenges on trying to educate people about the versatility of the products
Mm.
and how you can use one product for multiple things.
Mm.
Because in this whole journey of consumerism, we've learned how to now start having one little thing for the tip of your nose, one little thing for
Mm.
your cheek, one something else for your neck, something else for your hands. And when you try and tell people that, this can work for this, and this, say, oh my God, are you serious?
Mm.
I said, well, that's how the versatility of whether you take turmeric, whether you take ginger, whether you take coconut oil, whether you take sesame oil, these were all powerhouses of nature.
Yeah.
So whether you had dry skin, you would use coconut oil, or whether you had, body heat and inflammation, you'd use coconut oil, or whether you have breathing problems, you'll use ginger
Yeah.
late.
Yeah.
When you have a steam inhalation, you'll add ginger to it. When you have, adrak ki chai, that's ultimately getting that
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that.
absolutely.
If you have stomach bloating, you can
Correct.
actually apply the ginger oil in your navel and in your
Yeah,
stomach,
correct.
You can use it for, for girls, for menstrual cramps,
Yes.
for PMS, for us, for there was research
Sport
which showed
injuries
about
also.
absolutely. And in fact, in traditional Ayurveda, there is in the Dinacharya or the recommended daily regime, there is the concept of Abhyanga, which is oil massage. One of the elements in that is Padabhyanga or foot massage. And ideally, if you do it before you sleep,
It's beautiful.
at night on the soles of your feet,
Beautiful.
you get really good sleep. And this is sleep, so what's the big deal? But actually, sleep
No.
is the panacea of all ills.
Yes.
Less sleep, more
Everything
stress,
is a disruptor.
everything else
Yeah,
falls
absolutely.
into place.
Absolutely.
And the Zingiber oil is kind of like the A intersection B of Padabhyanga and Sunti Lepa, which is, a pack of or a paste of ginger, which you apply to your feet at night when you're really tired. So edema on the feet or things. Now, when you say edema on the feet, doesn't happen to all of us, but it's tiredness. The whole day you're sitting in one place, you are working on a computer,
You're traveling for 2 hours, 3 hours, yeah.
you're walking, all of that is leading to stress and tiredness. And interestingly, that same ginger oil, if you apply just a few drops on your temples, on your ears is actually Karna Bhyanga too. You apply it on your wrists, you apply it on the nape of your neck, and of course on your feet before sleeping. All these are pressure points. And they help relieve stress and really wipe out the tiredness. So whether you're working late at night and you're underslept, or you are underslept because you're jet lagged, or you're just stressed, or you have PMS, or you're just sitting for hours in front of the computer without moving and stretching yourself and everything is strained, this thing just magically removes it all. And we've been discovering more and more things about this very often from our consumers. Let's say, while research has shown all this, but see, whereas a lot of the research from Ayurveda is there documented in the Charak Samhita or it is there in the Ayurveda Pharmacopoeia, but even then, in practical living terms, in day to day life, today, sometimes it doesn't really show. And the proof of concept from theory into practice is sometimes a long journey. And as a startup, you don't have the big bucks for doing clinical trials, for instance. But all this is, the theoretical research which led to the product formulation has been translating itself into such wonderful feedback from every user. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I'm sure like people will be benefiting out of so many of these minimalist products that you have at Parama, right? You have stories and stories of that from your customers. And interestingly, many of your customers are also our customers. I think we share a small pool there. Because when we tried doing the eco mela in some of the societies, right? We did this thing. Remember, like your team was there.
Right, absolutely.
We were also there, so we were doing collection drives of recyclables, and your team was there also because you're looking at a common audience in that sense. And there were so many people who already knew about Parama, and I think it's great to see that cohort growing because I feel like it's the time when everybody has understood the value of sustainability and why we need to do different things in our life. Like just one is not enough, and I also feel that the era of individual action is probably going to dwindle down. But we'll see more communities coming together and saying a couple of things and doing a couple of things. So
True that.
yeah.
So yeah, see, you need like-minded individuals for it to grow. Notwithstanding that, I would say that at a consumer or at an individual level, the primary thing is for the product to be effective. People don't buy a product because it is sustainable.
That's true.
They buy it for the end benefit first
That
that
they
they are
get.
getting from it.
Yeah.
That it is sustainable is an
Is
add-on.
a add-on, yeah. That's
Okay,
true.
so you need to have, so your primary thing is how good the product is. That needs to be firmly
That's true.
entrenched, and then everything else needs to fit into the picture. So our first focus was on the
Product value.
effectiveness and the efficacy of the product. without a single chemical,
Hmm.
without a single chemical, without any compromise.
Hmm.
Because the
And you've done
chemicals
that very
itself,
interestingly, right? Like you've kept your bottle neck very small so that it doesn't go rancid. You've done like multiple things to maintain that, haven't you?
absolutely.
You've kept a pump instead of like a typically you would just be able to pour
So
that.
that was also part of the reduce, so that just take out only as much as you need.
Yeah.
Typically, when you pour it out, you use much more. Then you'll say, "Arey, बहुत ज़्यादा गिर गया है."
Hmm.
Then you'll say, "Arey, this is so oily and chip."
Hmm.
So it works on every front. Then you say, "Okay, fine." Like 100 sonar की, एक लोहार की. You need little bits for it to be effective.
Just
That's more than
effective,
enough.
yeah.
You don't have to inundate yourself with it for it to be effective.
Do you feel like
Because
you're going against the tide sometimes when you say that you need to use less and not more?
tell me about it. So my staff sometimes tells me, my team tells me sometimes, ma'am, you don't talk, because when customers saying I want to buy this product and this product and this product, you will tell them you can actually एक ही ले लो, उसमें तीनों हो जाएंगे. And but now they've learned also how to educate the customers,
Yeah.
because we don't, that one sale at that point in time does feel good on the bottom line. Not with, but on the other hand, when you have a satisfied customer, when they've realized that this is sustainable not just for me over my lifetime, this is not just sustainable for the planet Earth, but it is sustainable on my pocket too,
Yeah.
is when you have them come back. Because people then say, अरे ये छोटी सी बोतल तो चलती जाती है, almost reminds me of that battery ad which used to
Yeah. Last long, really long. That should be your punchline. Last long, really long.
I'll have them coming in my throat.
No, we just tell them we
So
share the same value.
Absolutely. Oh, there are many such taglines. Like, it was, when you have a face oil, it's fill it, shut it, forget it, was one. That's it, works on all fronts.
So last long, really long. That's a good one. So I feel like while we're sharing a very common pool of customers, uh, one of the things that has revealed to us, and you can tell me if that's also true for you, is this emerging market where people are seeking for reliability, whether it's a product or a service. Like for the kind of work that we do at ProEarth, we are composting about 10,000 kgs per day, every day, for Pune city. And one feedback that we often get from our customers is that we're very reliable, and we're very trustworthy, and we're there day after day after day. And I see that also as a common point, that something is not working with your products. Also, people have that opportunity to reach out to your team, to you, because your product is like damn solid, and that as a customer who is very mindful, and that set of customers growing, we've seen that over the last few years, right? We've seen that. So what's your thought on that?
No, I think that is absolutely true. See, when you are looking at building a business, and since we are into sustainability, we're talking about building a sustainable business or a sustainable practice. In fact, I think business is a very, I would say, a word which has been misunderstood and misrepresented. Business is something, is busyness, and business is something which somebody will be willing to pay you money only if you're solving their problem, right? This whole thing about consumerism, again, it's a nice thing to consume, but a customer will come back to you only if you have solved their problem. And as long as you're true to that, there will be no doubt that this is what that customer is looking at in terms of reliability.
Yeah, correct.
Now, as luck would have it, and I have a very, very recent incident. Just yesterday, a customer who had been using my products on and off in the last few years just messaged me, can you urgently send me this product? So I said, she normally orders on Amazon, and she said, but right now I need this urgently. And I said, what is why so urgent? Will you wait for a day or two, or do you need like
Now,
in the
now.
morning, now? She says the last few weeks she has broken out into some allergies, some reactions. She was not using my face oil. She was using it some time ago. She moved to some imported brand of a moisturizer. And she said, I have been breaking out into some allergic reaction around my eyes. And right now I'm so petrified that I don't even feel like touching it with water. But last week I happened to pick up one of your latest miniatures of the all day Lite turmeric face oil. I have been applying that this whole week, and I have not reacted adversely. That is the first step for me, that at least it is not getting worse. All right. And it's a comfort level, but I know that tomorrow is the last day of use I have of this, and I'm panicking in the dryness and the heat right now of Pune. What do I apply on my face if I don't have that? So can you please send it to me urgently? I said, okay, we are shut for the day, but tomorrow, first thing in the morning, we'll send it across to you. But that faith which came from actually having tried herself, found that it would not cause her a problem. And her words to me was, I know that this is the purest and the best that I can find. I think those words were so heartening.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you.
Absolutely.
And after that, we actually got into a conversation. We realized that there are many other things which are causing those allergies, maybe some food, maybe some lifestyle, maybe some fluctuations in the hormones which might be causing it. But for her to realize that everything else was causing a problem and this was not, and her faith that she would get the purest and the best, I think that was all that is required. But it requires, but building reliability and building customer engagement in a sustainable manner is a slow and steady process.
Steady process, yeah.
And so therefore, I think the challenge for us today as a startup is, how do you balance between growth and the rock steady, sure-footed progress? Because the metrics today in the world are all about the unicorns. How fast have you grown? What are the vanity metrics, as they call them? How many eyeballs, how many likes, how many followers, how many whatever. But if you see from the point of view of, I think, and what is the what should I say, proof for us that we need to and we should exist and progress, is the kind of faith that customers have in us, and that will happen only when they find the benefits.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we have had, with God's grace, repeat customers who come back to us almost like a subscription. It's like on a regular basis they are buying the products. Getting new customers is a challenge in this very crowded market, but we are confident that there is a space for slow and steady businesses.
Yeah, I resonate with what you're saying, because we're seeing that as well. And we always feel like there are people who have come to us after having tried so many solutions in the market, like how you're also people who've tried different moisturizers, different creams. But the ones who stay with us have stayed with us. People whose composting projects have stayed for like about 6-7 years now, and one always feels like कि कहाँ सुनने मिलता है कि 7 साल एक ही provider है, service provider है. Or for that matter, the trust that people have with us when we say that we are composting experts, or when we say that if there's a problem, we are there to address it within 24 hours. It'll be closed, it'll be dealt with. We're also very grateful that our team has been like that. We're even Sunday, if there's a call, everybody's there, willing to troubleshoot, because odors are something that we don't do very well with waste, right? So it's very heartening also to see customers keep that faith, and we've been very blessed. Incidentally, your old society has just signed up for a full-blown service with us.
Oh,
And
nice.
I think the first 150 that have stayed and subscribed to our service, um, they're actually the champions because they've shown to the world that a group of passionate individuals coming together can actually do something rock solid really well. We are just a narrative, just a storyline of that narrative. And I think that's a very good thing for us to carry on Earth Day as we move ahead. Otherwise, with all the rubbish that's happening out in the world, I can say that there are two small cohorts in Pune that are really making that on ground impact that we want to talk about.
No,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right because, I mean, another interesting thing was that, the first so-called guinea pig who was his friend on whom I tested this turmeric
Formulation.
oil formulation, she came back and she started working with me. And people were using the products for almost 4 or 5 years before we decided to launch the product. Because till then we kept searching. We said if there are enough brands out there in the market which are claiming to be Ayurvedic or natural or pure and herbal, I never had a history of business in my background. I was always uh, a person who was working for the corporate sector, who was volunteering. The word business was far flung from my imagination, and I wanted to focus much more on education and on doing some kind of social work, whether it was environment group, planting trees, or working in biodiversity, or women empowerment, or heritage, or whatever. And this was so it took me a lot of time, and I think I was quite reluctant to start a business. But when I realized that users kept insisting, why don't you do this? And every time I would say, why don't you use this brand or that brand or third brand? And somebody would say, oh, this one is not really effective, though they have very good celebrities endorsing it, or in some, or where they have many reviews, or in some case they say, oh, the fragrances or the smells are too strong for my liking, or they would say, but you know what, I'll end up buying it, but I don't end up using it. I don't know whether it's suiting me or it's not suiting me. And I think uh, the different reasons which they gave me and said, okay, fine, let's do a test launch. Then it worked towards that. And then I think, so today it's like,
So it's all come together.
it's all kind of come together. And I think that's, sometimes I think it's like almost like, the liquid oxygen joke in the movies, which is you say, okay, the plethora of brands out there and a crowded market space, sometimes you wonder whether there is any reason for you to exist. But on the other hand, the repeat purchases, the feedback from the customers is so strong that it re-emphasizes your raison d'etre to exist for something like this. And I think especially my one, and I think this is, I think, came from a very personal journey, which was as a working professional, I've there found very little time for self-care. And either I would, even if I knew that this product has these problems, I didn't have an option. Neither did I have the patience to sit and make my blends for, some pure uptan or something like that and sit pretty. Uh, Grooming was important, but neither one was possible. And I think the kind of solution that uh, I've always been working on at Parama Naturals is to make sure that can I look at that self-care in just 2 minutes? Because sometimes that was all the time that I had, maybe at a signal while driving for work, or between two things, even during the time that I was a stay-at-home mom, between juggling different roles. Uh, how much ever you say, take out that time for your self-care, but
Just doesn't happen.
it doesn't always happen. And secondly, sometimes that might not be your priority. You may want 20 other things to do, and your self-care actually might be reading a book, might be part of your self-care. It might not necessarily be skincare, right? Whereas in Ayurveda, skincare or self-care through Abhyanga is an integral part of a dinacharya. Now, that's not possible for you to sometimes apply oil and sit for 20 minutes. So how do you marry the two? And that has been my constant endeavor, that the leave-on cosmetics should be so pure and so effective that you get all the good things in, you keep all the bad things out, and most importantly, it's sustainable because you can do it every single day. And that is what makes the difference. And I think that has resonated
so
with
just like
everybody.
every day is Earth Day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not just
on
on Exam
22nd.
Day. Yes.
Super. Okay, so I think on that note, let's formally conclude.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is so nice to have a wonderful community building around this. And I think we need to make this community grow more and more and more, because the earth will probably exist whether we exist or we don't. So we need to, of course, be sustainable for ourselves, and then we need to make sure that the earth is sustained so that we're not always saddled with 43 degrees centigrade temperature and unseasonal rains which destroy the crops.